let me just ask you a question. Let's just get into it. You talk
Hmm.
about trauma in the body.
Yeah.
Um, are we talking like at a molecular level, where at the DNA level, like, DNA is a recorder of all things.
Hmm.
So is the trauma that we experience in our lives plus the experience of our ancestors, is all of this encoded in our DNA? And this what you mean by trauma in the body?
Yes, brother. So there's a term called epigenetics, right? Epigenetics is the term that says that the environment has some effect not on reorganizing the gene, but on what gets turned on and what gets turned off in the gene in order to either protect from some type of trauma or move away from some type of trauma. So let me give you an example. So there's a famous experiment called the cherry blossom experiment, and it was done with mice. And it was this experiment where the researcher took these male mice and he put them in a cage. And for a little while in this cage, it was a very nice cage. The mice were getting regular food. Their droppings were moved out. They were just being treated really nice. What the mice didn't know was that at the bottom of that cage was a was an electrified bottom. And so what he decided to do was he would turn that electric current on, and then those mice would jump around, climb on each other, try and get out of the cage. And he kept doing it. He kept doing it. And then at one period of time, he pumped in the smell of cherry blossoms. And so what happened is that smell of cherry blossoms would happen at the same time that he would turn on an electrical current, right? And so he did that for a little while, and then at one point he decided, I am going to turn off the electrical current and then just pump in the smell of cherry blossoms. And if you smell cherry blossoms are they smell very nice and very sweet. So he would pump that smell in, and when the mice would smell that, they would start acting the same way that they were acting when the current was going through the bottom of the thing. So he then removed those same male mice and put them in a cage with female mice that never had that experience. And then they had children. He removed those children, or those baby mice. He removed those baby mice. And then at one point, they got a little older. And then at one point, he pumped in just the smell of cherry blossoms. And when the baby mice, who had never had the experience of the electrical current going through their feet and through their bodies, when he did that, the mice acted as if the electric current was going through their bodies and going through their feet. They started climbing the same way that their fathers did, even though they never had any contact with their fathers. And so, what that suggests is that there is a hardwiring in the DNA that suggests that when there are things that are occurring in the environment in which there is no reprieve, the gene code starts to organize around it in order to protect the progeny from that point on. And so if the father or the mothers aren't available to say, look, you need to watch out for this or you need to watch out for that, what happens is that the gene code begins to turn on certain cursors in the gene code that says, pay attention to this. The problem is that many times that idea of paying attention to it doesn't have any context. So if you extrapolate that out to people, we then begin to think that something is wrong with us because we're having these notions around brutality that our ancestors may have experienced, and we pick it up in our bodies as notions, as vibes, as images and thoughts, as meaning making, as urges, as affect and emotionality, and as sensate or sensation. And so that's how that piece works. And part of my work is to help our people understand that you're not crazy. You're not crazy. This stuff we're part, Brother Jamar, me and you are part of creation, right? And so creation itself has an energy component to it, and that energy component doesn't just dissipate because the body is not there, right? And so there are things that are passed on by what my so I learned not only by what my mama said don't do and do, and my daddy said don't do and do. I also learned, brother, by what my mama's body recoils from and leans into, what my daddy's body
Mm.
recoils from and leans into. I also learned, even if I don't have a context for it, and they learned it from their mamas, daddies. By the time it gets to me, I just know it as notions. Does
That's
that make
deep.
sense?
That's deep. Absolutely.
Okay. 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 So what ends up happening, brother, and what I'm trying to do is help our people understand that this stuff, the brutality. Think about it. Can I take you through something right quick, brother, if it's all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Absolutely. We
so
here to learn,
yeah.
brother.
So imagine this, brother. Close your eyes just for a second. And everybody that's listening, just close your eyes for a second. So imagine that your mama's 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 was on a plantation. And at the age of 12, she started to begin to be raped. Legal rape, legally sanctioned rape, ordained rape. And she couldn't run from this thing and she couldn't flee from this thing. If she ran, she died. If she stayed, there was a death. So there is a stuckness that happens in that body. Now, now imagine it's not just her that happens to, but it's also all of the women that are in black bodies that's happening to. And all of the men can't protect, can't move in, can't do anything. So there's a stuck quality, literally in the body, right? Because there is no reprieve. Now imagine this, brother. Now, notice as I'm saying that to you, brother, notice how your body right now is responding to my words. There's something happening to you in this moment as I'm saying. Now take that and compound that by 400 years of what our ancestors went through, and then put a baby inside those bellies with all of that cortisol, all of that adrenaline, all of that norepinephrine coursing through the bloodstream at the very time that that baby's nervous system is being developed. These are not this is not oxytocin, this is not feel good chemicals. These are chemicals that are designed for survival, but they stay in the bloodstream because there is no ceasing of the brutality. So trauma in a person can look like personality over time. Time decontextualizes trauma. Trauma trauma in a family can look like family traits over time. Trauma in a people can look like culture over time.
Mm. You know, I've heard you say this in the past, and I want you to go into the science of exactly what you mean by
Yeah, 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 yeah.
decontextualization. W-
Yeah, brother. Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
what
yeah.
does it what does it mean to
Right, right.
decontextualize
So, bro,
something?
I've watched you a
Right,
couple
right.
times
So,
on some
bro,
things, and I
I've
watched
watched
you
you a
talk
couple
about some
times.
incidences that you were involved with, right? Just some things that you now you look back on, you say, man, yeah, it happened. That particular thing happened. Can you hear me, brother? Yeah.
I hear you
Yeah.
now.
So there's some things that have happened, and you go, yeah. Now that I look back on it, I learned some things from it, but I wish that these particular things hadn't happened quite the way that they happened, right? Some violent stuff and stuff like that, right? Now when that thing first happened, right? There was an emotional or vibratory. There was a response to that thing. But over time, right, that thing, the heat of that thing becomes less contextualized, right? What I mean by that is that all of the things that surround it are not present. So what ends up happening is that the march time itself can decontextualize trauma. So if something happened to my mama, right, before I was born, and she got organized around how to survive that trauma. By the time it gets to me and I'm with my mama, I don't know that thing. I just know that this is mama, and that begins to look like her personality. But it might just be how she got organized around the trauma in order to survive it. Do you understand what I mean? And so, okay.
Yes, I do. I just have to mute my mic for them
Yeah.
to hear me. But yes, I
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
hear what
yeah.
you're saying.
So decontextualization really is the march of time, right? Makes the story and the details of the story less present, right? And so what we do is we start a lot of times in places that we go, man, why is this coming up? Why am I noticing that? Why is it when this particular thing shows up between me and somebody, I begin to there are responses in my body almost like I want to annihilate this thing, right? Or this person. And I love this person, but I could lay waste to it. And a lot of times, brother, that energy is energy that never got completed ancestrally, never got completed intergenerationally, never got completed in terms of the persistent institutional, and never got completed in terms of our own stuff, right? So whether it was in gestation, whether it was in childhood, adolescent, adulthood, elderhood, or ancestryhood, there was no completion. So we keep coming back to that as a protective response for what we believe might continue to happen.
You know, I've heard you say in the past that decontextualization is like, you have an egg and you drain the yolk out of the egg.
That's
You
it.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
technically, it's still an
Yeah.
egg, but the
Yeah. Yeah.
essence of it is gone. Like, you know what I
That's
mean? And
exactly
that's
right.
what they
That's
try to
it.
do to our culture and all kind of shit.
That's it. And not this, not brother, not what they tried to do, what they continue to do.
Mm.
So my organizing piece is this, brother. This is one of the things, and just pause when you hear me say this. Pause for a second, okay? The white body is the supreme standard by which all bodies humanity shall be measured structurally and philosophically. Pause. The white body is the supreme standard by which all bodies humanity shall be measured structurally and philosophically. What that means is, brother, is that we are living in a system in which the white body has been constructed to be the standard of humanness. The race question in this country, brother, is actually not a race question. It is a species question. Is Brother Resma a monkey or not? Is Brother Jamar a monkey or not? That ethos is woven in and around and through every structure, right? As the white body, as they galvanized around the white body being the standard of humanness, they created this hierarchy. And the antithesis of that humanness was the black body and the indigenous body. And brother, that's why when you working with these folks and you pick up on something in black bodies, we resonate, we pick up on something, but we don't have an articulation for it, but our bodies are vibing. This ain't right. Something's wrong. Something's off. I can't really articulate what that is, but something's off. That's the thing. The whole structure is organized around them being the standard of humanness based on pigmentation. And we being the antithesis of that. And everything else is a deviance from that standard.